Mr. Chairman, I want to begin by thanking you for this markup and for bringing this really important piece of legislation to the committee. Guns have become the leading cause of death for American kids. Let that sink in, the leading cause of death. And for those who have said, oh, we're rushing this, more than 311,000 students have experienced gun violence since Columbine. So tell the parents who lost children, tell the family members who saw loved ones slaughtered that we're rushing. The real question is, why has it taken us so long? And there's one reason. We don't have Republican colleagues in the fight with us. We passed 2 bills to strengthen criminal background checks. Our ranking member just described those as radical attempts to take away the Second Amendment to explain Republican inaction in the Senate. That's a bill supported by 90% of the American people. Common sense, as well as closing the Charleston loophole. Enough with these bogus arguments about the Second Amendment. This is about fulfilling our responsibility to keep our constituents safe from gun violence. We have a gun violence epidemic in this country. Over 200 mass shootings, 27 school shootings just this year. And every one of those victims is a child, a sister, a brother, a parent, a loved one of people that we have a responsibility to represent in this country and in this Congress. This set of proposals will significantly reduce gun violence in this country. There's not a single bill we can pass that will eliminate all gun violence. We'd all be for that. But this will make sure that you have to be old enough to have some mature judgment before you can own an assault rifle, that you can't use high-capacity magazines that can slaughter innocents at a quicker pace, that we end gun trafficking and straw purchases that help criminals get guns, that we practice safe storage, eliminate bump stocks, and eliminate ghost guns so you can't secretly produce a gun and then do damage. And the ranking member said, well, these bills punish law-abiding citizens. What one of those bills punishes anyone? And even if you think it's some small burden, it pales in comparison to the burden and the punishment that victims of gun violence have had to experience. So save this claim that somehow this is just too much for law-abiding gun owners. It's just not true. And we have an opportunity today, and I was hoping when we came to Washington for this emergency markup in direct response to gun violence continuing to ravage our country, that we would be met with colleagues on the other side of the aisle who would join us in this effort. These bills, the 5 components of this bill have been introduced for a long time, some of them over multiple Congresses. These are not new issues. But our approach ought to be different today. We ought to work together in a bipartisan way and pass this bill out of this committee so we can demonstrate to the American people that we are committed to doing everything in our power to reduce gun violence in this country. And, you know, we've heard these same tired arguments that somehow we can't do this because the Constitution prohibits it. That is also not true. The Supreme Court of the United States has said time and time again that the Second Amendment is not absolute, that Congress and states have the ability, and I would say the responsibility, to ensure that there are appropriate restrictions both on age, on places where you can bring firearms, and the kind of firearms you can possess. That's long been recognized by the Supreme Court. So don't let our Republican colleagues hide behind this claim that, oh, we'd love to do something. We really know this is a serious problem. We extend our thoughts and prayers, and we would do more, but you know, the Second Amendment prohibits it. That is not true. Their refusal to join us in this effort is a direct result of the power and the resources of the gun lobby in America. And really the importance of just the proliferation of gun sales, because that's how the gun lobby makes its money. And so then they don't want any restriction, any limitation on how many guns can be sold and as quickly as possible to anyone who wants them. That's not the kind of America we want to live in. And I think for the sake of my constituents, for the sake of young people, seniors, all victims of gun violence, we have a responsibility to do something. And I hope this is the second package of gun safety bills we'll do. I hope we'll do more. And then it will be incumbent on our colleagues in the Senate to send these bills to the president's desk. And if they don't, it will be clear to the American people who's fighting for common sense gun safety legislation and who is standing in the way and it will explain why we continue to be a country that has a gun violence epidemic. We cannot allow this to continue. I urge my colleagues to support this act, and I yield back.